Before Muhoroni Sugar existed, the story had already started decades earlier. We are in colonial Kenya, early 1900s. The Muhoroni Kibos Belt, in what is today Kisumu County, it had already attracted Asian entrepreneurs who were experimenting with sugarcane farming. Around 1903, Asian settlers with capital from British India, they began commercial cane growing in the area. They were not small experiments, they were building a full sugar economy. By the 1920s, a company called Victoria Nyanza Sugar Company, it had established Kenya's first sugar mill in the Kibos Muhoroni region. These businesses, they were dominated by Asian investors. Many of them are connected to the Meta Business Network, which would later become extremely important in the history of Muhoroni. By the 1940s, the sugar industry in colonial Kenya was already active, but it was still small. In 1947, the Victoria Nyanza mill was sold to another Asian owner. Even with these factories running, Kenya still could not meet its sugar demand. By independence, the country was importing about 65% of the sugar it consumed. So the sugar industry existed, the farms existed, but Kenya still needed a large industrial factory that could produce sugar at scale. And that is where Muhoroni enters the story. Kenya became independent on December 12, 1963. The new government under President Jomo Kenyatta, it had a very clear economic strategy. Kenya needed to reduce imports and build local industries. Sugar, it was one of the biggest priorities. At the time, Kenya was consuming over 100,000 tons of sugar every year, but it was producing only a fraction of that locally. Importing sugar was draining foreign exchange, so the government decided to build new sugar factories. Muhoroni will be one of them. In 1964, a company called East Africa Sugar Industries Limited, it was incorporated under Kenya's Companies Act, Cap 486. This company would later become Muhoroni Sugar Company. The factory will be located in Muhoroni, in what was then part of Nyanza province. The idea was simple: build a large sugar mill, buy cane from thousands of small farmers, create jobs, and reduce imports. But the government could not do it alone, so they created a hybrid model. The early driving force behind the factory was the Meta Group. The Meta Group, it was already a powerful Asian multinational operating in East Africa. They had decades of experience in sugar milling. They had the engineers, they had the machinery connections, and they had the operational knowledge. So they became the technical promoters and managers of the project. The Kenyan government also became a shareholder. And the construction itself, it was funded through international development money. One of the biggest contributors was the United States Agency for International Development, USAID. These funds were connected to a major agricultural program called the Million Acre Scheme. This program ran roughly between 1962 and 1966. Its purpose was to redistribute land that had previously been controlled by white colonial settlers and turn it into productive agricultural zones run by Africans. Muhoroni became part of this bigger plan. The factory construction started around 1965, and in 1966, the Muhoroni Sugar Factory officially began operations. Its initial crushing capacity was 800 tons of sugarcane per day. Now, the Muhoroni factory, it was not designed to operate alone. It depended on farmers, thousands of them. The government created what is called an outgrower scheme. Under this system, smallholder farmers would plant sugarcane on their land. The factory would provide seeds, technical advice, and sometimes inputs. Then when the cane matured, the factory will buy it and process it. Over time, this system expanded massively. At its peak, Muhoroni supported about 23,000 farmers. These farmers depended on the factory as their guaranteed market. Muhoroni also became a major employer. Hundreds of workers were directly employed at the factory. Thousands more, they depended on transport, farming, and cane cutting jobs. For the region, the factory became an economic heartbeat. As demand grew, Muhoroni expanded. The factory's crushing capacity, it increased from the original 800 tons per day. First, it grew to about 1,800 tons per day. Eventually, it reached roughly 2,200 tons per day. This made Muhoroni one of the important sugar mills in the Nyanza region. It was not alone. Other state mills were being developed across the country. Chemelil Sugar was established in 1968, Mumias Sugar came in 1971, and Nzoia Sugar, it was established in 1978. Together, these factories formed the backbone of Kenya's state sugar industry. Muhoroni also began exploring diversification. Molasses production, it became an important byproduct. There were also attempts to move into ethanol production and other sugar byproducts. For a period, the factory represented Kenya's industrial ambition. A large rural factory, thousands of farmers, thousands of jobs, and a national project. But underneath the success, serious problems were slowly building. Originally, Muhoroni was a hybrid operation: private investors, foreign technical partners, and government ownership. But over time, the Kenyan government kept increasing its stake. By the 1970s and the 1980s, the government had become the dominant owner. Finally, in 1992, the government took full control of the company. East Africa Sugar Industries Limited, it was officially renamed Muhoroni Sugar Company Limited. From that moment, it became a fully state-owned enterprise. This was meant to ensure that the benefits of the sugar industry remained within Kenya. But state ownership comes with a new set of challenges. There is political influence, there is weak management systems, and there is increasing financial pressure. By the 2000s, one problem had become very obvious. The factory machinery was old. Very old. Some of the equipment installed in the 1960s, imagine it was still being used decades later. By 2018, reports showed that the factory was operating with technology that was more than 54 years old. Imagine trying to run a modern industrial operation with machines older than many of the workers. Imagine. Breakdowns became frequent, maintenance costs increased, and production efficiency dropped. Meanwhile, new private sugar companies, they were entering the market. Companies like West Kenya Sugar and Butali Sugar, they were using modern equipment and running much more efficiently. Muhoroni was struggling to compete. Eventually, the financial problems became impossible to ignore. In 2001, Muhoroni Sugar Company was placed under receivership. Receivership basically means that the company is taken over by creditors so that its assets can be protected while debts are managed. The main creditor involved in this process was Kenya Commercial Bank, KCB. The goal was to restructure the company and possibly prepare it for privatization. But what was supposed to be a temporary situation, it turned into something much longer. By 2018, Muhoroni had been in receivership for 17 years. Imagine, 17 years. During that time, the factory continued operating, but its financial health, it kept deteriorating. Government bailouts became routine, and then the audit started revealing something much worse. In October 2019, the Agriculture and Food Authority ordered a forensic audit of the company. The investigation was later detailed by Auditor General Nancy Gathungu. What they found was shocking. Between 2013 and 2017, sales had been understated by about 1.7 billion shillings. That means the sugar was being sold, but the revenue was not fully recorded. In 2015 alone, about 660 million shillings in sales proceeds, they were never banked. Money simply disappeared from the system. Another major issue involved a loan of 448 million shillings. This had been provided for factory repairs. Only 217 million shillings of that money could be properly accounted for. About 340.9 million shillings had been diverted to suppliers instead of machinery repairs. And more than 200 million shillings could not be clearly explained at all. The audit also found something disturbing inside the management structure. Some key technical roles were being held by people who did not even have the required qualifications. So the factory had old machines, missing money, and unqualified managers running critical operations. By the early 2020s, Muhoroni was drowning in debt. The Kenya Revenue Authority alone, it had tax arrears of about 861 million shillings. At times, the tax authority even garnished the company's revenue, meaning money from sales was automatically taken to pay taxes. Meanwhile, workers had unpaid salaries. The farmers, they had unpaid cane deliveries. One intervention alone involved about 570 million shillings, and this was meant to pay farmer and worker arrears. But the overall sector problem, it was even bigger. Kenya's government eventually approved a massive 117 billion shilling plan. This was to clean up debts across several state sugar mills. Now this package was meant to clear three things. 1. 65 billion shillings in bank loans. 2. 50 billion shillings in taxes and penalties. And 3. About 2 billion shillings in farmer and employee dues. Muhoroni was part of this rescue plan, but even that raised concerns. The Auditor General reports, they warned that taxpayers risk losing as much as 20 billion shillings if these bailouts are not properly managed. Now, sugar in Western Kenya, it has never been just about agriculture, it's politics. Factories like Muhoroni, they employ between 1,500 and 2,000 workers directly, and they support tens of thousands of farmers. That makes them powerful political tools. Leaders often promise to protect factories, prevent closures, or delay privatization during election periods. Privatization attempts, they were repeatedly blocked by politicians who argued that farmers should own shares or that counties should control the factories. Some regional leaders even went to court. They were trying to stop government privatization plans. At the same time, private sugar companies, they expanded rapidly. By around 2020, companies linked to the Rai Group, they controlled roughly 45% of the Kenyan sugar market. State factories like Muhoroni, they continued falling behind. As of 2025 and 2026, operations continue at reduced capacity, and diversification efforts include ethanol production and other byproducts. But the factory still carries the weight of decades of debt, aging infrastructure, and governance problems. This is just Katalina, and I'll see you guys in the next breakdown.